Assyrian cavalry were some of the first effective cavalry units used in the Middle East. With the Bronze Age collapse, many of the once dominant powers of the East were suddenly extremely vulnerable, allowing the once overlooked Assyrians to assert themselves as a power in the region, thanks largely to the many military innovations and use of cavalry. The need for cavalry arose when it dawned on the Assyrians that the chariot, which had been the go-to for fast-moving strikes, had great difficulty covering rough terrain, for example, mountains. Although this role could be filled with infantry, horses could do the job far faster. As a result, the Assyrians began experimenting with the idea of putting people on horses rather than getting the horses to pull the people in wheeled wagons. There was also a growing threat from the nomadic people of Iran. These Iranian nomads would hit Assyrian lands hard and fast, and before they had a chance to catch the raiders, they were gone in a cloud of dust. The Assyrians therefore began to train their own cavalry force as a way of countering these raids from the Iranian nomads. Originally, the cavalry was utilised much like chariots. The obvious drawback was that horsemanship had not yet developed where a rider could ride without hands, allowing them to use weapons such as the bow. As a result, early Assyrian cavalry in the 9th century actually had two riders, much like the chariots. They had a driver and a soldier wielding a bow. Carrying two men obviously had its drawbacks, one of which was that these soldiers could not be heavily armed, as there was only so much weight a horse could take before eventually collapsing. As a result, these early cavalrymen wore very light armour, often depicted wearing simple clothing and the iconic conical-shaped helmets as their only real armour. Recognising that putting two warriors on one horse was seriously hampering their performance on the field, the Assyrians began to pair up warriors on separate horses, now abandoning the idea of horse archers in favour of lancers. Suddenly, the Assyrian cavalry actually became something of a threat, as its flexibility and high manoeuvrability began to show real results on the battlefield. By the 7th century onwards, the Assyrians began to turn up onto the battlefield on horseback, wielding both bows and lancers. They had also evolved into the first known heavy cavalry. Having ditched the extra rider, the riders could now wear the long trenchcoat style lamel armour. This armour was a form of scale armour, with tiny scales of either leather or metal threaded together to provide a form of body armour that was unrivaled on the battlefield. With this extra weight and growing numbers on the battlefield, the Assyrian cavalry began to dominate on the field, quickly taking the place of the chariot and allowing the Assyrians to grow their empire to a never-before-seen size. The new Assyrian heavy cavalry was not without its weaknesses though. Cavalry proved to be especially vulnerable to spears, which could safely fend off the horses from a distance. As a result, flanking and harassment tactics became the norm for the Assyrian horsemen, and indeed the norm for many future cavalry units in the future. Thank you for watching and listening to our videos. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed. All sources are listed and linked in the description below. I've been the Ancient History Guy, and as always, I'll be seeing you later.